Hi, my name is Annie Grabowski. I am the educational consultant working in the field of autism. Welcome to the module on autism. We are going to talk about antecedent strategies or preventative approaches to working with students with autism. Some preventative strategies to have set up and ready to go when you are designing a classroom or working with a teacher on designing a classroom and getting ready to work with a student with autism are listed below. We are going to go into each one as we would talk through this module. The first one, arranging the environment. We want to ensure that learners are all easily observed from every place in the classroom. Do you have open sight lines? We want to arrange learning centers or areas with clear boundaries. Provide a variety of materials at each learning center or area that address all different ability levels and interests. We want to ensure that all learners have physical separation and are grouped appropriately. We want to identify and label areas of the classroom in which different behaviors are expected. You can use both words and pictures for your labels. Basically, you want communication-rich classroom. Pictures, text, video modeling, and other visuals are best for visual learners. A calming corner and our objects or activities that help to calm students, such as beanbags or weighted blankets, can provide opportunities to regroup and can be helpful in teaching self-soothing to help teaching self-soothe. It is also important to remove distracting or disturbing stimuli, such as replacing flickering fluorescent lights and using headphones to help block noise. We also want to make changes in addition to learning centers on a regular basis to maintain engagement. Doing this weekly is usually a good idea. Use pictures or labels that show where materials belong. Use posters and schedules to help learners understand what to do within or across activities. Provide sufficient space to engage in the activity, whether it's on the floor or at a test table or desk. Arrange the setting where a specific activity occurs with all of the needed materials. Design an attractive learning environment. Ensure that the work environment is neat and orderly. Ensure that needed materials are located near the learning activity or center. Provide study corrals for learners who are easily distracted. We also want to use visual supports in our classroom. Visual supports might include pictures, written words, objects, arranging the environment, visual boundaries, schedules, maps, labels, organization systems, timelines, and scripts. The various types of visual supports can be divided into three categories: visual boundaries, visual cues, and visual schedules. Visual supports present information in a way that learners with ASD focus on key elements. These supports establish expectations for the learner, increase on-task behavior, and foster independence by reducing the need for adult prompts and reinforcement. Visual supports have been used with young children to increase on-task behavior, social interactions, and play skill development. For older children, youth, visual supports can help with such behaviors such as reducing transition time and increasing engagement. We also want to maintain a schedule or a routine. Even very small or slight disruptions to a routine can cause a child diagnosed with autism to feel distress and confusion. Sometimes disruptions to the routine are unavoidable, such as changes that may happen in a schedule, school timetable, or school trips. We need to plan ahead for transitions in the daily schedule and plan for any expected or unexpected changes in the routine. Some strategies to help cope successfully with routine changes are social stories, extra time to deal with change, visits to new places and new people or therapists, timers, adding small changes to their schedules and routines. And if your student finds it hard to switch between activities, try slowly adding new activities one at a time. For example, you might want your student to learn to stop what they're doing and move to a new activity when you ask. You could start by making the new activity one that you know your student will enjoy. When you have done that activity, praise them. Keep doing this till your student is comfortable moving to the new activity when you ask. Then you could try making the switch to more novel activities. Keep practicing until your student can move to new activities when you ask, even if they're unfamiliar with those activities. Praise and reinforce your student when they're flexible and they cope with these changes. Here are some examples of what schedules can look like. They can take many different forms. There are many different myths around schedules that we're going to review. Myth 1, high functioning students with autism don't need visual schedules, but many times our students who are verbal and on grade level trick us into thinking they're able to do things that they can't do. We need to give them opportunities to be independent, most definitely. But if the difference between being independent is doing something with a visual schedule or doing something with an adult standing next to them, using the schedule is more independent. Myth 2, visual schedules for autism make students rigid, but rigid behavior is a characteristic of autism. If a schedule is used correctly, it can actually be used to teach the students with autism to be more flexible. Myth 3, once a student knows the classroom schedule, he doesn't need the visual schedule. But students with autism need visual schedules because life is not routine. They need the schedule for the times that the routine doesn't happen. Instead of making the decision to get rid of the schedule, it would be a better idea to teach how to be flexible within a routine while using the schedule. Myth 4, students become dependent on visual schedules. If I took away all of your planners right now, what would happen? Would you miss some games and some appointments? Probably. In a way, aren't we all dependent on our schedules? It's okay to be dependent on schedules. What we need to do is find one that matches the life the student will lead so they can be independent as possible. Myth 5, visual schedules in autism are always just daily picture schedules. But there are so many amazing and creative ways to create visual schedules. Object, tactile, picture, or word schedules are just to name a few. Just remember, the goal is to create a schedule that is individualized for each student to make them as independent as they can be. We want to manage unexpected changes in routine, and sometimes changes are unexpected. Coping with a sudden change can be something you prepare for before any change happens. Designing a warning system for unexpected changes can be taught during instructional time. So some strategies to cope with successful changes in routine: add a question mark to the schedule. For example, if you use a visual schedule of activities for your student, leave gaps between each picture so you can put in other pictures later, or use a question mark to represent a mystery or an uncertainty. If your child has a written schedule, leave a blank line between each task. Another simple way to help older children cope with change is to make a big deal of the concept of flexibility. Praise or reinforce your student whenever they cope with a change or an unexpected event. Tell your student how wonderful it is that they're flexible, and get your student to associate the skill with getting something they like attention or something more flexible, something more tangible. Structured time. Structuring the time within specific activities helps learners understand what is expected of them, as well as which activities they will engage in next. Use timers, preferably visual timers. Use highly preferred activities or items. What makes the learner laugh and smile and feel good and excited? What are some of their favorite things to do? What gets the learner to try new things? Because learners' preferences change over time, educational staff should periodically identify preferred materials, activities, peers, anything that engage them across the day. We may want to send home some reinforcement surveys with the families, or we may want to just try them within school ourselves just to get some information on our students. We want to offer choices to our students. Choice making is an effective intervention for increasing the active participation of individuals with autism. For example, providing choice opportunities has demonstrated successful outcomes to manage problem behavior. Choice indicates personal preferences and can function as a powerful reinforcer. It gives the learner control of the situation and offers motivation to participate. We want to offer learners choice about which activity they'd like to participate in first, as well as which materials they might like to use within an activity. Choices are a great way to teach language skills, communication skills, and we can use it in activities. We can offer it during food times, meal times. We can do it at special times when we're in the library or in the gym. We can do one more with peers, maybe which peers they'd like to hang out with when they're outside or when they're going to hang out on a field trip. Remember to always thank the students and reinforce them for making a choice. We want to enrich the environment with sensory stimuli. Examples of sensory-based items include sitting on a therapy ball or playing with silly putty or squeezing a squishy ball. Sensory rooms are dedicated spaces to sensory experiences designed specifically to help individuals with autism to feel calm, supported, and focused. Swings are often incorporated into sensory spaces because they are soothing and repetitive and provide vestibular input. Some children with autism feel disconnected from their bodies and crave physical sensation to center themselves. Weighted vests and blankets can help us as well. We want to keep lights relatively dim in sensory rooms and consider providing students with mild visual stimulation in the form of lava lamps or bubble columns, water fountains, or light projectors. For some people on the spectrum, soothing sounds are a wonderful tool for relaxation. Let's watch this video on how one school utilizes the sensory room.
Research shows that if the students in the right mindset and they get their sensory needs met, they're going to be much better learners. The sensory room is probably my most important piece of the day. Students go to the sensory room in order to calm their bodies and get all the emotions out and stabilize themselves so they're ready to learn and they're happy.
When we designed the sensory room, we actually took the entire room apart. We carpeted the floor so that we could absorb some of the sound. We put the shades on the ceiling to change the light. So when they walk in that room, they feel the change.
My class specifically, we utilize the room once a day for a 30-minute break.
First thing that they do is go on the ball and they bounce to a metronome. It's really a way to ground them into the space and give them some sensory input before we have them go out into the room.
We're going to do our rotation now, okay? So there's different stations in the sensory room, and some of my students love specific stations. One in particular loves the punching bag and the ropes. Able to get all that anger and frustration out. So that him down. Whereas another student, I know he needs calming. He's on the swing going back and forth.
Another area in the room is the crash pad. You will see students that have sensory issues bump into walls, bang their head. So what we've created is a safe space to crash into. And then there's a light wall. You can use your hands, you can use your feet. There's different games that are programmed on there. We also work on balance and coordination. The walking path works on all of those, and they have to right themselves, correct their body in space. We have 10-pound slam balls. Some students just need to come in, pick something heavy up and throw it. That's the essence of a sensory room. You're putting materials in there that are appropriate, so students not throwing a chair. And at the end, when they finish with their stations, they lay on the floor and they're squished. So everything that we do in there is predictable. There's a set sequence.
All done with sensory room, we're going to walk back to our class. So after the sensory room, people focus more. They're quieter and their hands are to themselves and they're able to listen to my directions. Over here, we keep the sensory room. We're ready to learn.
How does the sensory room make you feel? Happy.
By providing a sense of calm and comfort, sensory rooms help students learn to self-regulate their bodies, which ultimately improves focus. These rooms provide a safe place to work through and engage the senses, improve balance and coordination, encourage exploration, increase sensory experiences and tolerance, builds confidence, reset mood, and reduce stress. Sensory rooms also lead to increased vocabulary and communication opportunities. A student's sensory system is very delicate, and a sensory room can help them to learn how to sort out critical sensory data to better relate to their environment.